What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Champion Living Podcast, the only podcast crossing the lines between the sport of rodeo and fitness. Today's episode, me and Paulie are jumping into strength and conditioning. Is it black and white? Is it gray? And all the things around that. We're starting now. I already had my full cup of coffee. Is that your first one or your second one?
This is my first.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yes.
That's surprising. I've been making like a big Yeti cup full of it, so it's like more like a double cup, but it's been so good, especially as it's getting colder. I love my coffee so much.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I never stray away from coffee fully.
Yeah.
There's
Sometimes.
always yeah, sometimes it's iced coffee when it's real hot, but yeah, I'm hopelessly addicted, I guess you could say.
Same. I do love me some caffeine. When I was hunting, I was just drinking it black. And ever since I got back, I feel like we drink so much black coffee that it really doesn't affect me that much anymore in the mornings. So it's just more like a comfort thing. I'm just like, yeah. Warmness. Let's start the day.
Dude, and that's what's crazy about it too, is like I've tried doing energy drinks first thing in the morning. It can't, and like it doesn't do it. Like there's something about coffee that like once you become accustomed to it, like it's like the smell and the aroma. I guess that's the exact same thing, but maybe even the taste, like the smell and the taste. There's like it. I don't know if it like triggers something in your brain. Because the caffeine from an energy drink definitely does not hit me like the caffeine from a single cup of coffee in the morning.
Mm-mm.
So
me either, man. I've been adding in. Have you seen Magic Mind? The like the shots, like the little adaptogen shots, and they have like theanine, lion's mane, ashwagandha, and something else in them. Can't remember, but I've been taking
not
those.
that particular one. I've used several different ones before. What's it called? Magic Mind?
Magic Mind. Yeah, it's like Rogan was talking about on his podcast, and there's a lot of people that have been like a lot of his comedian friends have been talking about it. But I got suckered into the old social media advertising, and so I got some, and I've been taking it right before I start drinking my coffee, and I feel like it makes my coffee last way longer, and it's almost like I don't know, you're not high, but you kind of just feel like you're in this flow state for a good while, a good couple hours.
Yeah, so what I've used the mud water before, and that's exactly how I would describe it. Like I would add the mud water to one scoop of the mud water to my coffee, and it made 1 cup of coffee feel like 3 cups of coffee. And there was no like
smooth way
fall off of that. There was no crash. It was just smooth. It was like focus. It was all day long. And that was like what originally I used to get me off of caffeine, because I was consuming upwards of like 1,200 milligrams a day. And I realized that was not getting me anywhere. And so when I was going to wean off of caffeine, I used that mud water, and it sounds like it's pretty similar. I just pulled up this Magic Mind one.
Magic Mind. It's like it tastes like a souped up orange juice shot. Like it's it's not powder. It's all liquid, turmeric, and you shake it up really good. Matcha, yeah, that's what else was in it. Turmeric. Yep. So good for inflammation. Just good for the brain and the body. But I've been really, really enjoying those, and I take it with my coffee. And for our listeners that are here now, I don't really talk about a whole lot, but I've been on ADD meds for most of my life. And I found that, I don't know if it's just the combination of the coffee and that little shot of Magic Mind, but I cut my dose in half of what I usually take for my meds. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it definitely has helped me. So they're not a sponsor of the show or anything, but Magic Mind is definitely worth checking out if you're kind of looking for a better natural alternative to getting in that flow state. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we haven't talked about adaptogens in a while. It's been a good minute since we talked about it on here, but there's definitely some good ones out there, and I think everybody kind of reacts to them a little bit differently. Like somebody might say that they have a really good response to like lion's mane, whereas like the one that I say that I can like truly feel working is oh my gosh, cordyceps. Yeah, I almost lost it. Cordyceps. Like I can feel that. Like when I take cordyceps either as like a standalone supplement or like in a coffee drink or whatever, or another adaptogen blend that has cordyceps in it, like I can genuinely feel a difference like right away. And I know a lot, like with a lot of these things, like the main benefits of them are what's going to compound over time. Just having that in your body, like, you know, the stress relief from like the lion's mane or the ashwagandha, like it's gonna come more over time than, you know, just a single use. Um but yeah, there's some good. I'm gonna check out this Magic Mind one because I've definitely been thinking about either swapping back to the uh the mud water, or Four Sigmatic is
Trying
another
something
brand
new.
that I use
Four Sigmatic's
a
always
little
been good.
bit.
I always
So
enjoyed their stuff.
mm-hmm.
They were kind of like the OGs of bringing out adaptogens and combining them with coffee and
Yeah.
things like that. So I remember us talking
Yeah,
about them
I
maybe
think
a
I
year
first
ago
heard
or
about
so.
them on, yeah, it had to be at least. I first heard about them on like a Tim Ferriss podcast in like 2016 or something. So yeah, they're kind of like the first ones that at least brought that
I
to
think
my attention, like adaptogens and
is
what they're capable of.
Dave Asprey the creator, Osprey of those, the founder of Four
No,
Sigmatic?
he does the bulletproof coffee.
That
I
bulletproof.
don't
That's
think
right.
he's
That's right.
yeah, I don't think he's involved with Four Sigmatic,
Yeah, I
but
uh,
he probably
I
has
tried
his own line of
bulletproof
stuff.
coffee for originally like 5 or 6 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy that. That did taste very good. But I just kind of got away from it. But it's hard, you put butter and or coconut oil in coffee. It's hard for it to not taste good.
Yeah. Yeah, it does taste really good. And I do like, you know, I don't know. I've read into what, you know, Dave's articles and stuff on it a little bit, but like I've also heard pushback from other people like, you know, it's not a good idea to just, you know, add a bunch of fats to your coffee because basically you're increasing your calories a ton and you're not realizing like, you know, how much more calories you're consuming. So I don't know if that was
Yeah,
like the main pushback, but I definitely feel a difference too. Like when I put coconut oil or butter in my coffee, just like a tablespoon, like it
yeah,
feels like it works, like the caffeine works better. And there's got to be something to that, but I
yeah.
definitely feel it
Has to be.
working.
Yeah, I think that was for people more on like a ketogenic type diet.
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, we're looking for their main source of fuel is fats.
Yeah,
So and also
swapping
if
their
you
creamer to their to their
yeah,
to butter. It's like,
dude,
yeah, you're
hey,
not
when
really
you
reducing your
when you
calories,
froth
buddy.
up, yeah,
Like,
no, but when you froth up some butter in that, it really is like the thickest creamer ever. It's awesome.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's a really kind of a cool point that you said. Like it got pushed back, but it was getting pushed back because people were not using it for like the reason that they should be. They were just like, oh, bulletproof coffee's great, and they're still
Right.
just not keeping track of their intake. All of a sudden, they're super over on their fats. Their caloric intake has increased by a lot because per gram, there's a lot more calories in fat than there are other macros, right? So um, that kind of makes me think about like weight training and stuff too. There's all of these things floating around, right? And there's lots of gray area in between all of
Mm-hmm.
these issues or methods of training, however you want to say it. So let's jump into a little bit about strength and conditioning. What's right and wrong? Is there right and wrong? And how it's different for rodeo athletes rather than um, guys on a football team or baseball team or
Mm-hmm.
train for track and field or whatever. I think we've been chatting about this last couple of days, and I think it'd be a great thing to jump into for folks to hear about and maybe hear our opinion on it. What do you? I mean, strength and conditioning, in a sense, is kind of black and white. Like there are things that work, adaptations that you want to occur for every part. So whether it's strength, power, hypertrophy, um, cardiovascularly, yes, there are foundations. But beyond that,
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things you can use that go a little bit outside the realm of the foundation that still are very useful.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you think about it with, you know, you could say this for strength and conditioning, and I'll tie it back into nutrition again in a second. But like, there's like specific formulas and methods that we use that we know, like historically through, you know, studies and, you know, even anecdotes, that like these things work. If you want X, we do, you know, W, Z, and Y, and we get X. Like it's pretty straightforward. But there's individual variances like within every situation. So like that's where it becomes, this black and white thing becomes gray. And the same thing is with nutrition. Like if you want to lose weight, you got to reduce your calories. Well, how do we reduce your calories? There's 10 different tools we can use to reduce your calories. You can go low fat, you can go low carb, you can do keto. Like I don't recommend, necessarily doing any one of those things, but like these are all tools in the tool belt. But each individual is going to adhere to one of those plans more likely than they will the others. Most people aren't just going to go cut out an entire food group. They're not going to go vegan, or they're not going to go carnivore. Like, and those are two, very polar opposite things. Again, I don't recommend anybody doing either of those. But like, intermittent fasting, like you skip breakfast. Well, that could be a good way to reduce your calories. Is it a good way for most athletes? No, absolutely not. But like, in the context of we have a formula to get to a goal, but there's a lot of psychology that goes on here too. And so there's these individual variances that are going to come up with each person, because everybody's going to they're going to respond a little bit differently. But I think adherence and their commitment to like the plan is what is going to change the most.
Absolutely, man. And just what you were just talking about, like it's very individualized. Everybody is going to have a different thing that is going to work for them better than the other. And those plans next to person A and B may look very similar, but there's going to be very drastic differences in parts of them that are going to adhere to their lifestyles better, or their routine better, or just where they are in their fitness or nutrition journey. As a rodeo athlete and rodeo athletes that we work with, we see this. If you were a strength and conditioning coach and you're looking at the baseline of coaching, you would look at the CSCS or NSCA, or what is ISSA is the other one that's pretty popular for like getting credentials or getting certified. And they put everything into buckets or categories essentially, and they say that if you want to do to gain strength, you have to do this, and this is the only way to do it. If you want to get power, this is how you do it, and these are the only ways to do it. Well, rodeo is very different, as we all know, right? We are not the standard sports team, which is, first of all, standard sports teams, professional sports teams, high school, college, whatever, they are required to meet together at a weight room and have a coach that is there with them every single part of the day. They are required
to have an off season.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just so different than any kind of regular sport. So what I've been seeing more and more with more coaches coming around that are, wanting to work with rodeo athletes, is they keep putting rodeo in this box of, a football type sport, a baseball type sport, where you have this, you train, then it follows to this. The biggest thing is when you break it up into the time frame, we've got off season, preseason, competitive season, off season. We don't have the off season in rodeo, really. So you wanting to set up training blocks is a great idea, but they're going to look drastically different than any other sport. And you can't put rodeo on the same what's the word? Like the same training blocks. They just won't work, because you don't have enough time to get them done for them to actually see those adaptations. And also, they aren't required to be there, if that makes sense. So it's all about their individual buy-in to the program. They have to be committed and consistent, and you could put together the best training blocks ever, and if they don't do the plan, it's not going to work. So what's different for us is we also have to think about the athlete and the service we're providing to them. And part of that service is keeping them engaged, keeping them excited about training. And when you are on your own, it's hard to stay pumped when you're doing the same things over and over. Is that the best way to get adaptations and master the movement? Absolutely. You need practice at that movement. So in a perfect world, we would have athletes doing pretty much the same movements for 8 to 10 weeks. And they're just continually increasing the weight, increasing the reps, the volume, whatever stage of training we're in. They will be adhering to those things. And after 10 weeks, they will be moving perfectly. They will be lifting more weight or getting more reps or whatever it is. But we don't have that much time. in rodeo. And just looking at the NFR now, their season ended, and the NFR, the biggest competition of the entire season, where the whole livelihood depends on, is 10 weeks from there. Dude, most teams have what, like 15, 16 weeks in between seasons, like 4 months of training. We have to cut that down in half. So our training blocks are a lot smaller, or a lot quicker, if you will. They're about, 3 weeks, 4 weeks tops. And so we have to continue to keep them on a little bit of a fast tracked pace. And so when we're talking about coaching and being certified and having all these things in your toolbox as a coach, yeah, it's great to be certified. But what I'm seeing here is, what's even better is to be certified and have hands-on experience with rodeo. And I've actually done it and been there before. So a lot of these new coaches coming up, I'm seeing that have not really had a ton of rodeo experience. They're understanding what movements, what body parts, what muscles need to be strengthened, conditioned, whatever, but they're lacking that rodeo experience of, I know what happens on the road. I know how they're feeling. We know how, how it goes every day to day out there, and it's tough. And so having them on this training block that they have to be hitting X, Y, and Z every single week is not always possible. So I think that making sure when you guys are looking for coaches that, and again, there's more coaches than us. There are a good handful of them out there that are outstanding and have tons of experience in this. But just because the guy seems super smart and says the biggest words doesn't mean shit, at least in my opinion. The results that the athletes are getting, the the way that the coaches are portraying their training is, to me, tells me everything. If I can read a post and my 6-year-old nephew can read that same post and understand it, that's what I'm going for. I want it to be simple. I want coaches to get it out there to where the masses can understand it. No one gives a fuck about how big a word you can say, especially if you don't even know what half of that shit means. So I don't know. I'm just kind of going on a rant here about other coaches, but there are good ones and there are other ones that are, trying to force big words on people.
I want to say on the flip side though, of like the schedule being so erratic, is like sometimes I have a handful of clients like this, like they are just circuit guys, like, and they're like, they want to dominate in their circuit, and they'll take a longer period of time off in between. Like, I get to do a little bit more of a traditional style block with them in the off season, and it's so much fun because then I get to, like, start to introduce some Olympic weightlifting to them, and like, start working on things like that, and we can start working on more advanced, explosive movements with the hips. And it's like, this is really cool because, like, now your 2022 versus 2023 is going to look very different. Whereas, like, instead of we're just like blending everything within the season, trying to keep you going down the road, like, we can actually make like legitimate progress here. Absolutely. And I don't think that the elite rodeo athlete will move toward that anytime soon, other than your handful of like older guys. And like I mean, I think we've said before, like, guys like Casey and stuff, that they just don't go to near as many rodeos. But like, they like, so there's a time and place for it, but it goes right back to the individual thing. Like, that's not going to work for everybody. Like I said, I've got maybe 3 or 4 guys, maybe not even 4, it might be less than that I can even do that with. And they have the training age and the training background and the experience and the want to, and the schedule allows for it. Like, that's 4 different variables that allow for that to happen. Like, most people aren't going to have those 4 things. And so there's all kinds of differences and stuff in there. Man, there was something else that you were talking about that I wanted to piggyback off of, but yeah, there's a lot of individual variance within everything, as far as like, I would say like training age and schedule are like the 2 biggest things that we run into with rodeo athletes, because most guys haven't worked out until they call us, or if they have, like, it was really limited, wrestling background, lots of conditioning, starve yourself, like, and we gotta like totally break all that down and be like, all right, buddy, I know that worked in high school wrestling, but you're 25 now and you're playing a much more a sport that's way more damaging to your body that needs to recover. And so yeah,
man, the
fun.
the volume of competition is the huge part in professional rodeo. So you've got guys that are, I mean, during this busy season or that just came through, dude, sometimes they're getting on 5 or 6 a week. Like you can't introduce intensity in training and be at a huge high intensity level of competition with all this volume. It just won't mix. I think that keeping intensity.
That was what I wanted to talk about. Oh, I was just gonna say like the competition volume. So like as far as like other sports go, that's one that I try to lean on a lot when we're thinking about in season is baseball, because they have a similar schedule. Like obviously it's within a set season they have an off season, but when we're talking about in season, like baseball's schedule is pretty close to rodeo. You're competing almost every day of the week, and the days you aren't, you're either recovering because you're beat up or you're practicing. And so there's things that baseball coaches will do that I really enjoy. It's like, and that's where the gray area comes in, is even within structure of a professional sport, like there's still gray area. Like each athlete is not going to be ready to do a full on training session on that one off day that they have. It might be something else. It might be active recovery. And I mean, obviously active recovery, when we say active recovery, we can group that into a ton of different things. That's a pretty wide spectrum there. That could include a walk, that could include mobility, that could include going for a hike. Heck, I like to call fly fishing active recovery, because you're out, you're walking, you're moving, you're resisting against water, like you're doing something outdoors. Like there can be active recovery, can be a ton of different things. And so when we think about that, like each athlete's going to feel different on that off day. And so each active recovery session is probably going to be a little bit different.
Absolutely.
At the same time, a guy experiencing the exact same things might have a very similar active recovery day as somebody else, So there's.
And you're talking about like PVR teams that I've been working with, they are much more like a regular sport team on their blocks, right? Their training blocks, because they're only competing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that means Monday and Tuesday, depending on how sore they are. And some of the guys didn't even ride on the weekend. They just were there for the support and to get on if they needed to re-ride. But those guys can hit Monday and Tuesday at a pretty high intensity. The volume will not be very high because they're in season, but I think it's a very important thing for athletes to maintain that intensity if they can in their training. And it's just to remind the body that, hey, like I'm going to be demanding this of you, and we need to keep training it and realizing that we can perform it at this level of intensity. Like you were saying, though, for rodeo athletes and a lot of these other guys, like that's not possible because they're getting on so much. The competition of volume is so high that active recovery maintenance is all we can do, and is all they're capable of doing. They don't have, much energy for anything else. But we saw at the end of this year, our athletes that were consistent with that active recovery throughout the season were coming out of the season day 1, day 2 after, and we're calling ready to get ready for the finals already. And that's something we hadn't experienced in the entire time that we've been coaching. It's been this is year 4 of really being, head first, full on into this. I was around for another year before that, but, we're learning too as coaches what works better for our athletes. And this is something that I'm seeing is working great for the athletes as long as they're consistent. They're not having to come out of the season and rehab a bunch of things and get a bunch of imbalances corrected. They're leaving the season, heading into this new season of training, and they're ready to fucking roll. And they're going to see, man, we're going to see some big things at the NFR this year. And I'm excited for it because these guys that have been putting in the work and training are going to show up and they're going to play. And they're going to play the win, which is going to be so cool to see. That kind of brings me to just what the mindset of athletes should be, and those that want to be great and that want to succeed a lot of things is you have to do the things you don't want to do, even though you don't want to do them, and you have to do them consistently. And that's literally the one thing that separates being good from being great, the champions from not the losers, but from the not champions. You have to continue to do that shit over and over and over. And the best example I can think of is the little things. So let's say you get a groin injury, you do the rehab that we work on you with, you do the exercises, that thing's feeling great. Well, just because it's feeling great doesn't mean you stop doing those things. You have to continually do those things. And I just had an athlete the other day. He had a grade 2 strain in his groin, in his adductors. I think it was 2 of the 3 adductors he had strains in. This was right before Pendleton, 2 weeks before. We did solid rehab for 2 weeks. It was feeling great. He went and got on Pendleton. It felt good. For the next 2 weeks, he didn't do anything. He just let life get away from him. And granted, he's got a lot of things going on in life, but he didn't do anything for 2 weeks and went and got on again. Didn't hurt, like injure it, but definitely strained it again. And when we had our conversation about, well, I'm looking at your schedule here, dude, you haven't checked in for a workout in, 2.5 weeks, and you just went and got on. What exactly did you expect to happen? And he was like, man, I honestly never thought about it like that. I didn't realize that I have to continue to do those things. And minus me of saying it, must have said it 100 times to him, but it resonated this time, when he actually got the firsthand experience of like, hey, this was feeling really good 2 weeks ago and I stopped doing everything because life was busy. But you've got to make it a priority. Are you tired of being 24th in the world? Are you tired of being 16th in the world? Dude, do something different. And that doing something different is not the sexier thing to do. It's doing the same monotonous thing that has been showing the good results over and over and over. And it can't leave your program. You have to continue to do that, and you have to stay hooked. And that's where, at least in rodeo, it's different because, like I said, in football, baseball, those athletes are required to be at the weight room. They're required to meet with their strength and conditioning coach. And it doesn't matter what it is. They just have to do the fucking work. Rodeo athletes, they're hiring us. They're coming to us. And so we are not only offering a strength and conditioning service, but it's very much like hospitality in the sense that we still have to make the plan exciting for them. We still have to adapt it in ways that make them feel like they're doing new things. But the adaptations or the modifications of each exercise do not have to go into this super crazy realm or this super high intensity realm. We still want to make them focus on being perfect at moving in the gym, crushing that tempo, increasing the strength, increasing the power. And we can do that through a lot of different modes and variations. But as coaches, we are continually having to make it exciting, quote unquote. And that's great. I think that makes us outstanding coaches, but that's the big difference between regular sport and what we're doing here is these guys aren't required to be here. So we do have to play into mind what's going to keep them excited, what's going to keep them hooked on training, right? Granted, it'd be much easier if everyone had to show up to the gym and work out together, and it's no questions asked, just do the work because, quote unquote,
Yeah,
I
don't
said
know.
so, right?
I think those guys in that setting, they still experience the same thing because like you're still gonna have like your team leaders, your guys that are your go getters that are gonna lead and work really hard. And then I'm just thinking back to like high school athletics and how our weight room operated. And then you have your handful of loafers. They're gonna
Oh yeah.
they're gonna try and talk the whole time. They're gonna like try and get out of different exercises. They're not gonna do what they don't want to do. So I think they still experience that to some degree, but obviously it is much more difficult for us on a remote aspect of trying to keep the guys engaged and like constant communication of like, hey, like what do you want to do this week, like what do you, and then like
Wait, what are
you
you
know you kind
feeling?
of ask what do you want, and then give them a little bit of what they need with that as well. And I mean, like going back to what you were saying with the like, basically to summarize, like you said, if you don't use it, you lose it. You stop doing these things, and then they go away. And like if you think about it, like there's I'm gonna butcher these timelines, but it's something like max strength sticks around for 30 days. Cardio max, VO2 max sticks around for like 2 to 3 weeks. Top speed only lasts 3 to 7 days. So
Yeah,
like
not long.
when guys talk about like they feel better because when they get on more often, it's because they're working the muscles that they're asking top speed out of more frequently. And so like if we can kind of replicate somewhat of more speed or power in the gym on those off days, they may not have to get on as frequently as they think they do to keep that top speed up.
Man, that's a super good point, and that's so true. Yeah, like you said, if you use it, if you don't use it, you lose it, and you've got to continually be doing those things. And that's what we're here for, is to make sure we have that all timed out. All the guys have to do, or girls have to do, is show up and do the work. And we're seeing that those people that stay hooked and stay consistent, they're seeing the biggest, best results, and they're going into this off season preparing for the NFR in places they've never been. We got athletes that are, we're not getting younger; everyone's getting older. But I have athletes that have been doing this for a long time that are telling me this is the best they've ever felt. And that's that's the anomaly we're looking for. We're looking for those Tom Brady's of the sport, whether it's a guy or a girl. We want you to keep getting better as the years are going, because that is not normal in the time scale of rodeo.
Speaking of Tom Brady, did you listen to that podcast I sent you?
No, I listened to the other one you sent me. Which one was the Tom Brady one?
Oh man, I sent a Tom Brady one to you a few days ago. I think I'm going to share it on my story here. But I don't know if I'm going to link it in the show notes. But I'll find it and I'm going to share it. So if you're listening, then I'll post on my story a few different times, because like it was the first time that I've ever heard him talk about how he became, Tom Brady, basically. Like, I mean, he was never the standout athlete in, middle school, high school, college, even in the pros. Like, he was always a backup, and he had to work his way up the depth chart. And like his mentality is what made him, like his thought process, like the way he looked at everything. He always came back to, like, the interviewer kept trying to get out, like, why did you do it? Did you want more rings than Michael Jordan, or did you want more rings than Bill Belichick? And he always circled back to, I just wanted to be the best I could be. He said, I didn't know if that was the best ever. I had no intentions of being the best ever. I just wanted to be the best I can be. And by having that mentality of being the best that he could be, he ended up being the best ever. Like, how many other guys out there could be the best ever if they were to want to believe in themselves that much and put out the effort to become the best that they can possibly be?
Yeah, dude, sky's the limit when you start adapting or adopting that kind of mindset. And what that really shows me is, like, he was able to just block out all the noise and just focus on himself, and that in turn made him the best there ever was. And that right there should tell anybody or show anybody listening that it's that simple. Blocking out the noise, blocking out all the surround sound that's going on that says, hey, you should be doing this, or hey, look how cool this is. Like, you know what the fundamentals are. And if you can master those and stick to your guns on those and realize that those fundamentals are going to get you through every situation in sport and life, dude, like I said, sky's the limit. You can accomplish anything. And that's the hardest part about this sport, is sticking to your guns on those fundamentals and not overthinking what you're doing. Because in the end, once we start to think, at least when we're competing, we're in a bind. You should be practicing so much that competition is natural and that you are able to show up and it just happens, right? You think about A, B, and C, and that's it. When we start, young athletes, we deal with that all the time. Well, I need to be putting more pressure on this foot. It's like, not at the rodeo. Don't be thinking about that. Think about that on the spurboard, or think about that on your practice runs, or on the rope and dummy. That's where you master the things you need to fix. And once you fix them, don't think about it beyond that. Just go to competition knowing what you need to do and knowing the cues that are going to get you there. Super important. I was going to say something else. Well, back to what you were talking about, like communicating with your athletes while they're training, I think is one of the biggest things for a coach that any coach can do. You have to communicate with your athletes and make them feel like they are, not make them feel, but make them a part of the process. You're in this together, asking where they're feeling movements, exercises, making sure they're feeling it in the right spots. Asking if they feel like this is useful to what they're doing is a huge part of what we do. And a huge part of the success that we've seen with our athletes is incorporating them in what we're giving them. There are a lot of coaches out there that, and most of them are like weight rooms and things like that, where kids are they have to be there, quote unquote, but it's either my way or the highway kind of deal. And strength and conditioning just isn't like that. And especially in rodeo, we're still in such uncharted waters here, figuring out exactly the way it should go. And what we're finding is there isn't an exact way it should go. It's different for everybody. It has to be, because everybody is different. So make sure you're getting, if you're hiring a coach, make sure they're communicating with you. They're not just saying, you do this because I said so. Make sure that it's relating to the sport, sport specific to the muscles that you're going to be using, the movements that you're going to be doing. And it should keep you, what's the word I'm looking for? Not in the zone, but like keep you focused on it. It should keep you wanting to do more, right? You should be seeing each week, you're seeing progress, whether that's a little bit longer of a hold on, some kind of plank, or the weight increasing just a little bit each time. That's good shit. That's the progress that we're looking for. And when you get to see that week to week, man, it makes it easy to show up and say, I'm getting better at this. Like, this is going to be so much better the next week. what we run into is people not giving enough time. You've got to stay hooked, and you've got to give it time. This is not a 2-month thing. This is not a 3-month thing. You look at any champion, they've been working this for years, sometimes 10 years or more. 10,000 hour rule. Like, dude, you got to put in that time for everything. And it all comes together, like we've said before, the puzzle. You've got to work out, you've got to do the nutrition, you got to practice sports specifically, and then you have to compete, and you have to have reps at all of those things, and not just a few, a shitload of reps, and then you will start to see the success. So anybody listening, stay hooked, stay after it. Get you a coach if you are someone that's not, I'm not educated is not what I'm going for, but like someone that doesn't, you just don't know, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, if you're
we're
lost,
here to show you the way, and if you're lost, exactly. And our goal as coaches is for you to come to a point where you're not lost, and you are able to understand what's going on and understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. And if you wanted to go off by your own, you could. And that's, something that we pride ourselves on is I'm not trying to get people stuck here. And so where they have to depend on me to have workouts. Our goal is to educate and help our athletes understand why we're doing the things we're doing, when to do those things. And the reason they keep us around is because of the transparency, and because they don't have to think. They know that we have their best interest in mind, and they know that they're going to get results doing what we put on their program. And so that's, something we've strived for, something that we've been doing a great job of. And you can ask any of our athletes, like I communicate with them all the time about what we're doing, why we're doing it, especially all my NFR athletes, especially this year was cool. Like they've been asking me specifically why we're doing certain things. And I get to explain, whether it's the energy system that we're using or the style of exercise that we're using, and getting to see that light bulb go off in them and say, oh, I see now. I see how that translates. It's just super cool. So anyone listening that, dude, whether you're a rodeo athlete, a mom or dad that wants to chase the kids around without getting run out of breath, maybe we're just middle of hunting season. I have tons of my athletes are hunting right now, and they're coming back and they're like, dude, I could walk with this pack so much further and not be out of breath. It was so much more enjoyable. And like, that wasn't even the goal, right? It was just a byproduct of the exercise and the programs that we have them on. But dude, that's rank. We're trying to make people badass at everyday life, whether it's, again, a normal walk of life or as an extreme athlete or rodeo athlete. We're here for it, and we will help you get better. So make sure that the coaches you're looking at are getting the results that you're looking for with other clients currently, and that are putting out good information and not just little snippets. And if you look at my post, like my post yesterday, dude, I typed out every cue to every exercise because I want people to see, like, this is how it should be. This is something you can understand. This is, free information that anybody can take. So just be looking for the transparency, looking for the coaches that really care and are having everybody's best interest in mind. But, guys, we're going to wrap it up right there. Thanks, Paul, for being here. That was an awesome conversation. We got to thank our sponsors, Beastmaster Rodeo, been with us since day one, the elite rodeo gear company in America, or we'll just say the whole wide world right now. Check them out, beastmasterrodeo.com. Use our discount code ChampionLiving, all caps locked, one word, gonna save you 10%. And Hui Brands, dude, the hoodies that Hui's putting out, oh my God, I just live in this thing. It's the softest, most comfortable thing ever. Guys, check them out. Fall's here, winter's here. Start checking out their new fall line. Super rank stuff out. HuiBrands.com. Use our discount code ChampionLiving. Is not case sensitive. Going to save you 10% on all their products. And also, when they have their outlet sales, they just had one the other day, but the discount still works for the sales. So you get even like double sale when you check it out. Guys, until next time, we'll catch you later.